Live from the virtual Martinsville Speedway in Martinsville, Virginia. Welcome, sim racing fans, to the East Coast Thunder eSports Tour Modified Series, live on Apex Racing TV. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Joining me in the commentary booth is Brian Delp, Marco Barbanera down in the production trailer. And Brian, let me just lay out the scene for you. Double points tonight at the historic Martinsville Speedway, the paperclip it's formerly known as, and we are under the lights. This is just a recipe for a great race in these modifieds.
Oh yeah, we saw last week where we had a decent green flag run, which brought across some good action as we got to see guys chasing one another and try to make some hard passes. This week, it's a little bit of the same. Martinsville, it's a one-lane track. You want to hug that bottom. You want to be down there. We're going to see a lot of people using that bumper to move people up out of the way and get underneath them here. So that's really the only way you're going to make passes other than dive bombing in there. And at that point, you got to hold it and try not to push off and touch the people on the outside. So I do think we're going to see a lot of wrecks, but we're also going to get to see some great action battling around here under the lights.
Always a fun race whenever you are at Martinsville in any one of these cars here on the iRacing.com service. Taking a look at that point standings, we are currently in week number 6 of this series and the second double points race of the season. We go back to week number 1 at New Hampshire. That was our first double points race. And those double points races are crucial because we've seen Kyle Eli go back-to-back in wins in week 2 and 3. But because it wasn't a double points weekend, he is still stuck back in 13th right now in the point standings. So no double points weekend at the beginning of the season really hurt him, and everybody else has been able to get a jump on those drivers that are a little bit more sparse with their signups. Matthew Lambert, who has been in every race so far, 5 out of 5 starts, he leads your point standings with a total of 225 points. 10 points behind with 215 is Casey Hash. Then Russell Peets sits in 3rd, Cullen Johnson 4th, and Tyler Catalano in 5th. Trevor Catalano 6th, Jason Ham 7th, Patrick Hosier in 8th, Hunter Zeiken 9th, and Chris Downing rounds out your top 10 on the point standings. And right now, only a handful of drivers have been here every weekend, but those drivers, Brian, are all within the top 8 in the point standings.
Yeah, and double points, you're going to see a lot of moving after this race depending on where people finish. Guys that maybe missed that first race are going to be able to make up some points here if they can get a decent finish. Along with other guys could lose out big if you're one of those top points getters right now in the leaders. If you have a bad race here, then you're going to fall big in the standings. So it really comes down to these guys picking and choosing their fights tonight and being able to keep that car clean because you want to get that good finish to get those points.
There's your points leader, Matthew Lambert. Lambert still winless on the season. Tyler Catalano was last week's winner. He sits 5th in the points right now. And the majority of those winners are drivers that really did 1 or 2 races, or basically a handful of races, and then they haven't shown up since. But Brian, we've seen that weekly participation can get you far. Do you think Matthew Lambert can continue at the pace he's at, just being consistent, getting consistent top 10s and not winning a race? Do you think he can still get that points championship come week 10?
I think it's possible. I think he may need at least 1 win to pull off the championship, but we've seen it in real life where you can just run consistently and pull out a championship without getting that win. Where you need to finish really comes down to how your competitors do, but being consistent is one of the biggest things, not being caught up in some of these incidents that we've seen others where someone maybe wrecks in front of you or up in the field and you just come up and get into it and that blow your engine or hurt your car so much that you end up out of the top 10. So basically you need to be consistent and get those good finishes over possibly wrecking yourself.
Let's take a look at how we will get to the checkered flag tonight. Tonight's race format, we'll have a 3-minute qualifying, which is coming up in about 3 minutes time, with the top 6 will make their way to the feature race without having to race through our heats. Then we'll have a pair of heats, heat 1 and heat 2, depending on the amount of drivers we have signed up. They will all go racing for 8 laps, with the top 4 automatically getting a spot in the feature race. Then we'll have a 3-minute warm-up, and then we'll have a 60-lap feature with 22 drivers entered in it. But we have 19 currently signed up, so as of right now, everybody will make their way into the feature race. The heats and qualifying will all determine where each driver will start. And Brian, determining on the last couple of weeks that we have had in this series, track position is key with the limited amount of pit stops they are going to be making.
Yeah, and not even just the pit stops. Like I said earlier, this track, it's very much one lane. It's that bottom lane, right around the curb there, where you're just hugging that to get the most speed. Whoever can rotate their car the most is going to be able to really get that nice run off. But it's just going to be so hard to make passes here without using your bumper and moving someone out of that lane unless they get tight and push off. So it really just comes down to being patient and picking and choosing your moves here.
We've seen this so many times in this series. I feel like a broken record. The newbie, Tyler Cox, making his first start tonight in the 17. He sits top of the speed charts right now with Trevor Catalano in second, Billy Kruzka in third, Kyle Sisko fourth, and Tyler Catalano, last week's winner. You're currently on board with him. Sits in the fifth spot with a 18.565. Last time by, he ran a 19.294. Getting a little bit loose coming off of turn two, spinning it around on the back straightaway. But less than 2 minutes to go here in practice before we get into qualifying for tonight's racing here at the Martinsville Speedway. Remember, double points on the line. Track position and how you finish in that feature race is crucial to the remainder of this points championship.
Yeah, it just those points are such a big deal, especially the double points, because there's so few of them that are like that that it adds a little bit of strategy kind of to these point system where you're not running for the same points every week. There are those big events that give you those bonus points, so you really, really need to hit those spots and get a good finish there. So I'm thinking if you really want to make the most of it, you have to be in the top 5 here to get the most out of these double points. Of course, winning will give you the most that you could possibly get, but top 5, I feel, is really taking advantage of it. Anything after that, I feel like you're just losing out on points that you could have had.
43 seconds remaining here in practice as everybody makes their way with those final times coming in. I'm expecting some fast times in qualifying. The current fastest time is an 18.425, with the majority of cars first down to 15th all being under 19-second lap times, with Jody Reinhardt in 16th having a 19 flat. So expect some 18-second lap times, and I think that pole sitter is going to need to break into the 18.2s or the 18.3s to try and secure that pole. And there we go. Time expiring on practice as we get ready to go into qualifying.
Yeah, it's just going to be, we see the times and how close they are, that really you have to just hit your marks here in qualifying. And we've noticed that sometimes those qualifying times slow down a little bit because people worry about screwing up too much on their laps. So it's really going to come down to hitting your marks, being consistent, because right now there are 3 guys in that 18, or 4 guys, it seemed like, in the 18.4s. So you lay a blanket over them, 1/100th of a second can really determine who is on pole here. So these guys really got to put it down.
20 cars signed up. That means everybody will make their way into the feature, but the qualifying and heat races will determine where they'll start. Here we go. First cars taking the green flag here at the Martinsville Speedway for qualifying. The East Coast Thunder eSports Tour Modified Series. 2.5 minutes left to get those times in. And there's a 64, Tyler Catalano, last week's winner from Oxford Plains, coming off of turn number 2 on his first lap. First time's coming in from Trevor Catalano, 18.459. Evan Rajilski, it's another new name, 18.921. They go down to third. Jason Hand in second, but just like that, Tyler Catalano in the 64, right up to P2, 18.563. Here's the 6 of Billy Kruzka, going to get his first time in. Where will he sit on the speed chart? Cross the line, and he'll be up to third, 18.613.
Yeah, the one car we haven't had a time from yet is Tyler Cox. Of course, the provisional pole leader from practice, as he's coming around to put in his time. We'll see if he can jump up there over top of Catalano. His time in practice was better, so he's coming around to take the checkered flag, I think, on his lap, and we'll see what it comes out to. And just like that, he jumps up to the pole with an 18.41, almost cracking into the 18.3s.
5/100ths of a second over Trevor Catalano. What a time from Tyler Cox. I mean, we've seen it with Kyle Eli. We saw it with Brandon Wilkinson. Just these guys that just show up out of nowhere and lay down the fastest times of the night. It is insane some of the lap times that these guys can run. And an 18.812 from Mike Buchanan, and up to fifth, that's Kyle Cisco, 18.593. And Tyler Cox in the 17, looking to make another time, but he's going to get loose coming on the front straightaway, and around he goes.
Yeah, that's just trying to break into those 18.3s now, because like you said, they're so close together that it's easy for someone else to go out and maybe pick up that time, because it doesn't take much to really pick it up. We see that battle going on for the transfer spots right now, and it's just constantly changing as guys are going out and laying more laps down. But time is coming to an end here soon, so these guys that are trying to make it straight on and into that top order to make it straight to the feature race really need to get out there and lay down that lap now.
Cisco to the top of the charts, 18.384 as the checkered flag goes out. Kyle Cisco with a late lap was able to take the pole away from Tyler Cox, and there is your qualifying results. What a blazing fast time from Kyle Cisco as he breaks into the 18.3s. But Tyler Cox, Trevor Catalano, Jason Rickard, Tyler Catalano, and Billy Kruska all will automatically make their way into the feature. They will not have to race through our heats. Just speaking of the heats, we're getting ready for heat number one. We're only going to have one heat tonight because of the amount of cars that are signed up for tonight's race. So here is your starting grid. Ken Zeems will start us off in the front row alongside Matthew Lambert, your points leader. Patrick Hosier in third, Jason Hand fourth, Mike Buchanan fifth, Evan Rajilski in sixth, Colin Johnson seventh, Jody Reinhardt eighth, Hunter Azaik in ninth, and Dom Adam Seeks rounds out your top 10 with James Gerald and Ignacio Adames rounding out your top 12. And heading down the rest of the order, Stephen Barber, Daniel Hutchins rounds out your entire field for this one and only heat. This will determine the remaining starting spots, 7th all the way to 20th in our feature race.
Yeah, and we're going to see here, I think, especially on this first lap, these guys are going to take every advantage you can. Those guys on the high side are going to try and find a hole to get down here. So it's going to make it really tough on these guys on this first lap, because you can easily get freight trained on that bottom. So those guys on the top are going to be looking for any opportunity to get down.
To put pace laps here at the Martinsville Speedway on any track that is under a mile long on the iRacing service. That pace car will do 2 pace laps to make sure everybody is ready to go and lined up for this start. Taking a look at that weather currently on the right side of your screen, courtesy of our SDK Gaming overlays. Partly cloudy, 80 degrees surface temperature on the track, 56% humidity, 77 degrees in the air. Track temp just a little hotter than that at 80 degrees, but still fairly cool on as track temps go. But that iRacing.com pace car going to pull into the safety of pit road. 14 cars ready to set their grid position for the feature race. The 90 of Ken Zeems leads us to the green flag. Off turn 4, we are green flag in the heats.
Yeah, that was a great start there from Ken Zeems, which allowed Matthew Lambert to be able to get down to the bottom also and get clear. As we see these guys back on the back fighting here, you'll see the guys on the bottom really have that advantage, especially going into the corner there, as we see the 84 pulling through there of Colin Johnston passing a couple cars. So that high side is not where you want to be at all, and it seems like the 12 is struggling to hold the bottom at the moment.
Possibly that 12 car Jason Hand a little bit too tight on the inside line as those tires get up to temperature. All right, you can see that car is just pushing, coming off of the corner through middle to exit. It is going up towards the wall. That is not where he wants it to go. The 90 at Ken Zeems looking great right now up front, just running 18.681 and pulling away from Matthew Lambert in the 48. As you can see, to the inside, Colin Johnson in the 84, but he gets on that rumble strip, The 84 going to lose a lot of positions now. That is not the way he wants to be going.
Yeah, it's one of those things where that curb is there. You want oh, and a big wreck back there with the 92 involved. I'm not sure who else that was involved there, but big accident happening there as they clear for us.
That was the 31 of Jody Reinhardt involved with the 92 of James Gerald. Here's the replay. The 92 just got a little bit too hot into the corner, and it looks like he tried to get into that inside line. There was a little bit of an opening there, but it doesn't look like it was open enough for that car to go in there. But another car around, that's the 38 of Ignacio Adames around in turn 1, but he was not on the lead lap. He is now 1 lap down, as the 27 also having issues coming off of turn 2. Carnage in the back of this field, but up front it's all Ken Zeems in the 90 leading the way.
Yeah, and there's multiple things. Oh, and it looks like again, maybe that's can't quite get a number yet. It looks like the 38 having issues there of Ignacio Adames again. So these guys are just having a ton of issues. As now the 42 of Mike Buchanan is around. So it's easily to be able to get turned here. Someone just gets a little bit inside and gets on a rear quarter panel and turns someone around, or get on, like you mentioned, that curb can get you loose also. So it's kind of managing exactly where your car is, because you want to get as close to that curb without touching it, as Ken Zeems comes around and takes the win in the heat with Matthew Lambert in second.
Hosier comes home third with Dom Adams Eakes in fourth, Colin Johnson fifth, Evan Rajilski in sixth, Stephen Barber seventh, Mike Buchanan eighth, Hunter Zeich in ninth, and that is all the cars currently running on the speedway. They all come across the line. Full finishing order for your heat, the single heat of tonight here at the Martinsville Speedway on your screen now. Ken Zeems grabbing the win with Matthew Lambert in second, Hosier third, Adam Zeeks fourth, Colin Johnston rounds out your top 5. And that is how they will set the positions 7 through 20 in tonight's starting grid for the feature race. Now we are in the 3-minute warm-up before tonight's feature. Final changes to the setup, final changes to the driving line. And Brian, considering we saw a lot of carnage in the heat, are you expecting some more here in the feature?
Oh, definitely. With more cars out on the track, and especially with it being that feature race, these guys are going to take every opportunity they can to get inside of one another. And we saw that cause issues before, where sometimes these cars can be a little bit hard to tell exactly how close someone is with the bumper sticking out a little bit. So it's can be difficult to tell. So pulling down on someone is a common theme you'll see in these cars. So especially here at Martinsville, where getting to that bottom is so important, where if you get in too hot and just push up a little bit, someone can easily be right there to your inside. So I think it's just going to be a lot about car control is what we're going to see the most of here, as we see as we're riding along with Tyler Catalano here, and he got a little bit loose on exits. So really this track is all about being able to rotate your car and have really good car control when it does get loose.
And we've seen that be an issue in the heats, getting loose off of the corners, as the 64 right on time, just right behind another car, and he ends up getting loose coming down the back straightaway. So looks like there's going to be a common theme here tonight, as your pole sitter, Kyle Sisko, gets loose coming off of turn 2. So it looks like these guys are a little bit loosey-goosey coming off of the corners. That is going to be a storyline all night throughout this 60-lap feature. But Brian, that is assuming that we get some long green flag runs. We had one last week at Oxford Plains for the majority of the last half of the race, but the other races have been majority cautions and majority caution laps.
Yeah, it's really just going to come down to picking and choosing your opportunities here, not forcing the issue. For some guys, that green flag run is what they're going to be looking for. Others that are set up to run short runs here. So it just really comes down to being able to manage the situation and having your car be able to do both, which is a very hard thing to do. So that's why usually you'll see guys pick and choose whether they're good on the long run or the short runs. I'm thinking most of these guys probably have their cars set up for the short runs, expecting it to go that way. But you never know the 1 or 2 races that we might get that really long green flag run, and you'll see guys that will benefit. So I really hope we get to see that green flag run here, because Martinsville is such a great place to race at, with it especially being under the lights now. So we can get to see some action-packed racing.
Warm-up is over. The checkered flag waves on the final practice before we go racing here at the Martinsville Speedway. Let's take a look at your starting grid for tonight's feature race. Kyle Cisco bested the rest in qualifying. He sits on the pole with Tyler Cox to his outside in the 17. Trevor Catalano will start in P3. P4, Jason Ricker and Tyler Catalano will round out your top 5 with Billy Kruzka, Ken Zeems, Matthew Lambert, Patrick Hosier, and Don Adam Seeks rounding out your top 10.
In 11th, you have Colin Johnston. In 12th is Evan Rajelski. In 13th is Stephen Barber. 14th is Mike Buchanan. 15th, Hunter Izik. 16th is Ignacio Adames. 17th, Jason Hand. 18th is James Gerald. 19th, Joni Reinard. And rounding out your field in 20th is Daniel Hutchins.
That field gridded up. It looks like Daniel Hutchins not able to make the race. So we have 19 cars starting tonight's race. Kyle Cisco is going to lead that field to the green flag. You can see all 19 of these Toro Modifieds rolling off from the front straightaway. Double points race tonight. Brian, do you think that's going to make these drivers a little bit more anxious and a little bit more ready to get up to the front?
Yeah, I think it really is going to come down. I think you want to be towards the front starting at lap 30. I think if you're not there by lap 30, it's going to make things difficult for you, depending on if there's a wreck towards the front. So it really, at the halfway mark, if you haven't pitted yet, you're not going to pit, is basically what you're saying. Because if you're not at the front after the halfway mark, you're too far back to really have a chance at this thing based on any cautions that come out, because track position just means so much that you really have to be careful in what you do. And you also, I think you're better if you're in third place. I think you'd rather run there than actually run in second for the time being until you get towards the last lap, just because when a caution comes out, if you're in third over second, you're getting to start on that bottom. So it really is just one of those things where you have to really manage everything.
Pace car in. A lot of unknowns here tonight, but all we know, double points means double the action. It's time to go racing. We are green at the Martinsville Speedway for the feature.
A really late start there, as they're still side by side, and we see a car get pushed up out of the lane there. And we see that Trevor Catalano is able to squeeze by as Jason Ricker moves back. So these guys are really fighting for those positions right now all the way back, but Cisco seems to be in command out front.
Good start from that 62. Was able to get out front. Ken Zeems getting a little bit held up by the 64 of Tyler Catalano, but he's going to lose a position now to the 6 car of Billy Kruzka. Zeems now down to P7 where he started, and we got carnage in the back, the 21 around. That's Don Adam Seeks along with the 38 of Ignacio Adames. And who else is that involved? That looks to be the 92 machine of James Gerald.
Yeah, and we'll have to get a replay on exactly what ends up happening here, but it's probably your typical Martinsville contact that you see of someone maybe getting inside or getting in a little too hot. We'll see as they come off of an exit here, going into, I think, turn 3 this is, and yeah, the 84 there just gets in a little bit hot of Colin Johnston, gets into the 21, and from there the 21 just gets turned, and cars just pile in from that point because there's so little room to go anywhere.
The 42 also got some damage from that, but I want to talk about something I just saw on my timing right now. Matthew Lambert, the points leader, is in pit road. He just pulled into his pit box. I'm wondering what the decision is from the 48 right now. You can see him right there. He's in his pit stall. Is he taking tires? These guys have one set of tires they can change. But we are on lap 4, and it looks like he just pulled out of his pit stall. He's now down in P18, 14-second stop. I'm wondering what that 48 was doing down pit road. Did he possibly get some damage somewhere?
Quite possibly. It's very easy to pick up damage here with any little bit of contact. So he maybe just got tapped or tapped someone else, and it might have caused some damage. Not exactly sure, but or maybe wanting a change of some type. So coming down and just making some sort of change. I'm doubting he took tires this early. It's a little bit way too early for that. So we'll just have to wait and see as things go along now.
A 14-second pit stop in these Tour Modifieds is not a 4-tire stop. That'll be a 4-tire stop in the NASCAR Cup Series, but not here in the Tour Modifieds. So very curious what that... Oh, thank you from our producer, Marco Barbonera. It sounds like the 48 of Matthew Lambert had no force feedback to start this race. He had to pull in and fix that force feedback. So thank you to Marco, our wonderful producer, a wonderful Italian producer, for giving us some news here with the 48 not having force feedback there. Brian, that is such an interesting situation that really you would only have in the sim.
Yeah, it's one of those things that not having it after being used to it for so much can really cause you issues. I've had it happen to me before. So you really want to get in there and get that issue fixed as soon as possible.
Cisco up front to his outside. Tyler Cox and the Catalanos. Phil Pete, number 2. And green flag back out. A nice start from the 62. A much earlier start than the initial start of this race. But on lap 7, the entire field is going to go through turns 1 and 2. Single file train on the inside. Apart from a couple stragglers on the outside. But that 62 is looking to command this lead. But that 17 is very close behind him as we have a battle for the 7th spot behind these guys.
Yeah, and I see a lot of times that some of these cars on the low side are still having trouble holding that bottom, especially towards the exit where they're starting to push up and there's a car on the outside who has to go even wider to not get turned. That's something we're going to see throughout the race, and I'm sure we're going to see it cause maybe a few accidents as we see the 28 and the 8 having some issues here. That's Steven Barber and Hunter Izik. No caution is out, though, which is peculiar considering he was sitting in the track, and now the leaders are coming around and he's getting in the way a bit.
Oh, and that caused the 54 of Trevor Catalano to get a little bit loose. He definitely came onto the track a little bit quickly there and right in front of those leaders. Not exactly ideal for anybody on the lead lap, but it seems like everybody was able to make it through. No caution from the iRacing stewards. But to the outside of Ken Zeems, that's the 13 of Jason Ricker. And on the inside, there goes Everett Jajelski saying, I'll take that spot, thank you very much. That's going to move the 13 of Jason Ricker down to P8.
Yeah, and going back to that, I'm sure a lot of people are not going to be happy with that decision because if you're going with an issue like that, you want to get to the high side. And it's again the 38, Ignacio Adama, is having some issues here. We saw him have some issues in the heat and having some more here. So, oh, and it looks like and the 38 just hit both of the Catalanos in one turn as the leaders couldn't get around him and he was moving.
And that's honestly what Martinsville produces with the amount of track real estate you really have to work with. You're stuck in the racing line and you want to get out of it as quickly as possible, not just to help you, but to help the other drivers. But sometimes it just helps more to stay in the same place because you can see the 38 just came down and nowhere for either of the Catalanos to go. Trevor ran right into the side of him, and the 38 moved up right as Tyler was trying to go around the outside.
Yeah, that's one of those things where you're trying to get turned around so you don't lose a lap, but it's better for you to just call out where you are and stay there instead of moving because you driving like that, all it does is collect more cars. As we see Billy Kruska getting into the wall because of it also. So he just took out a bunch of lead lap cars and top 5 cars just by moving from his spot. And so I'm sure a lot of drivers are not going to be happy with him for that decision.
Wondering how much damage they have because none of them are coming down pit road. Everybody's staying out on the racetrack. And the good thing about iRacing.com is once the caution comes out, field is frozen. And even if you do slow down, and like those Catalanos did for a reasonable amount of time, you will be able to get that spot back. So Trevor and Tyler both back in P3 and 4 with Billy Kruska in P number 5. Your biggest mover of the race currently tonight is Jody Reinhardt. He is up 8 positions, started dead last, P19. He is up to 11th now in that 31 machine out of Pennsylvania. So a good night so far for Jody Reinhardt. As we see this field pacing down behind the iRacing.com pace car, getting ready for another restart. And here comes Matthew Lambert, points leader again down pit road.
I wonder if he's still having that force feedback issue and still trying to get it fixed. So we'll have to see if that's the reason why or not. Um, these cars kind of, if you look at them from this angle, you'll get to see that their wheels are a little bit towed differently, which is something that is unique to these cars also. But Lambert getting enough time now as the lights are still on the pace cars, so maybe coming down, checking the force feedback or anything else. But these cars are definitely a lot of fun to drive and then very interesting, and we're kind of getting to see that, especially here at Martinsville.
A 2.5-second stop for Matthew Lambert, which makes me almost think that he might have been checking those wheel settings again because he had that force feedback issue earlier in this race, or he might have had a stop-go penalty from the stewards. Very possible that could have also happened. And we'll see if we can get a follow-up on that later in the race to try and bring to you. But the field right now is in turns 3 and 4 with Kyle Sisko on the inside, Tyler Cox on the outside, the Catalano's in row 2, and the 62 with a blazing start. He caught the entire second row napping there as the Catalano's now going to fall victim to the 17 and the 6. They're all side by side behind the 62 of Kyle Sisko as he tries to pull away.
Yeah, Tyler Cox has a very strong car right now. He was able to make the pass still on the outside, or be able to really hold on to that spot since he started up there on the restart. But usually when a car gets to the inside of another one, that's it. You are done. But Cox was able to drive around that outside to keep second place. So that's just shows how strong his car is if he can ever get really close to Cisco, and maybe even get that run to see how it ends up turning out.
And Cisco just making that gap ever wider. Now currently 7/10 of a second between the top two as we're taking a look at the battle between the 13 and the 27. And right up to the 6 and the 54. The 6 hits the rumble strip. And around goes Billy Kruska on the inside. The Martinsville rumble strip takes out another. And this time it is the 6 machine.
Yeah, that's one of those incidents where when you're side by side, a car can really force you down. As we see, the 54 is not giving the 6 any room. The 6 has to hit that strip or else he's going to end up just wrecking them both. So I'm sure Billy will not be happy with being pinched down like that in the turn when he was under him. So as he's coming down to most likely get some damage fixed from that. But you really have to be aware of where the cars are so that you don't force them down like that, because he easily could have taken out Catalano there with him.
Take a look at the replay on board with Billy Kruska on that inside. And yeah, it just does look like the 54 not giving the 6 any room on that inside line. And that's kind of what you have to do here on the short tracks, because that 54, he wants to get as close to the inside as possible. They just got a little bit too close to that number 6, and around went Kruska after hitting the rumble strip on the inside. But there's your leader, the 62 of Kyle Sisko. He has led since the start with Tyler Cox in second. In third, it's Trevor Catalano. Fourth, Tyler Catalano. Fifth, Ken Zeems. Sixth, Jason Ricker. Seventh, Evan Rajilski. In eighth, it's Patrick Hosier. Ninth, Mike Buchanan and Jody Reinhardt rounds out your top 10 currently on the racetrack as you're watching the East Coast Thunder eSports Tour Modified Series here on Apex Racing TV. As the field getting ready to go back to racing here at the Martinsville Speedway. Double points up for grabs tonight, and that is going to be crucial for any of these drivers making a run at the championship. And right now, Kyle Sisko sits in the lead. He is in 19th currently on the point standing, so he needs a win in this double points race if he wants any shot at the championship. And Tyler Cox, this is his first race, so this is going to put him on the point standings for the first time, and winning a double points race is going to be great for him if he wants to continue in this series and make a run at the points championship. But Brian, we are halfway through this season. Can the 17 even have a chance at the championship right now?
I think by now it's probably too far out of the reach, but you do still want to get those race wins, because race wins are always nice to have. They're a point to show that you can really hang in there with the best of them. So every driver wants to win every race they're in. So he's got a couple more races to really do that. So even though the championship is probably out of reach at this point, he still can put in a show to show that he's a fierce force to be reckoned with.
Lights out on the iRacing.com Ford Mustang pace car, which means we are getting ready to go back to racing. Field getting double file. 62 of Kyle Sisko will start on the inside of row 1. He has led since the outset. And the 17 of Tyler Cox, who is outside, needs a good start here with the Catalanos once again taking up the entirety of row 2 with Ken Zeems in the 90, your heat winner in P number 5. This field is 2 by 2, and there goes the 62 of Cisco. We're back racing at the Martinsville Speedway.
Yeah, and another great start there for the front 2 runners. But we see back in the field, these guys are dogfighting throughout there because typically what happens is somewhere someone doesn't go as well and the back gets stacked up. So then you have guys side by side for a couple laps, and around goes the 13, it looks like. Possibly of Jason Ricker getting loose, it seemed like, and just losing the car.
And it looks like that looseness coming off of the corner strikes in the race with the 13. They were scrapping together all the way in the back, but it looks like on the outside, and he got up a little bit too far out of the groove. It looks like, I believe what happened there is that he got up out of the groove, and that cold track up there is not rubbered in. In fact, it has marbles up there. He just got up there and got loose, loss of grip, and went around. It doesn't look like anybody else suffered damage from that wreck. It looks like very much a single car incident there.
Yeah, it's again one of those things where Martinsville is a track that it does become difficult to turn. So it's very easy to get loose because you can have too much wheel input in along with the too much throttle at that point. So that's where it really just comes down to be able to have car control, where if you get pushed up like that, where you're out of the groove, where you know to let off the throttle enough but still have enough to really make a run, but you can't really be open throttle there because it's going to cause that back end to lose its grip and come around due to the wheel input. So it's one of those things where it's a really tough thing to do, especially on the outside where you don't end up running much, but you want to turn the wheel as little as possible, and Martinsville does not play into that favor.
And we've seen all night currently that this has just been an insane night filled with carnage and everything. And Lambert's second stop, we are just getting word, was to fix damage, but it turned out he had no damage. So that 48 is primed and ready to go, currently sits in 11th. And Lambert needs a good finish, especially in this double points race, if he wants to stay at the top of the points chase, because he is at the top of the point standings right now, and he has been there for, I believe, since week 2. He took it over in week 2, and he has not looked back since. And he has 10 points between him and Casey Hatch, and Hatch is not in this race, and he was 13 points above Russell Beets. Russell Beets is not in this race. 4th place, Cullen Johnston, is in this race, and he currently runs 2 positions ahead of the 48 in 9th. So it's going to be interesting to see how this points is going to shake up after this race concludes, because this points being double points, it is going to be intense coming down to the end of this race, because everybody wants those double points, but they need to finish really well to get enough double points to be good enough to make their way up in that points chase.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, with some of those guys not being here at the moment, that's going to make it really tough for them to catch back up, especially since they're missing the double points race. But it just presents a beautiful opportunity for these drivers to separate themselves from those guys that ended up missing the event, because you're getting the double the points you would normally. So that's basically an extra race at that point. So these guys are really putting it all on the line here to try to get those points and give themselves some space and comfortability within the points.
Field back in double file, getting ready to go back to racing. Kyle Sisko has led since the outset. He's back on that inside line. Now a new face in row 2. That's Ken Zeems up to P4. Watch him. He has a fast tour modified after winning the heat race. But through turn 4, Kyle Sisko gonna put the power down. The 62 is gone. We're back racing, and Zeems into P3. That 90 car has a mission, and it has its eyes set on the lead, but the Kent 90 machine of Kent Zeems is going to sit in P3 now. He's going to have to pick away at the 17 if he wants a shot at the lead.
Yeah, the 54 there of Trevor Catalano did not get a good restart, but they are teammates, so maybe it was a plan throughout the team to kind of get them both down on the bottom without having to fight one another. But you never know, and it looks like the 17 is having some issues actually. He was really low there on exit, which you normally don't want to be unless you're having some issues. So not quite sure what happened to him, but they are single file for the most part up here at the front, which you'll see that the front pack will then start to pull away from those guys that are double file back there.
Take a look back on Tyler Cox to the 90 machine of Ken Seams, and it looks like that 90 machine is just falling back. He doesn't have enough to contend with these top guys, but he is getting close. He's just not within striking distance, and I also don't think he has enough time to really sit here and try and catch the 17 because the tire wear is not really that heavy here at Martinsville Speedway, nor in these Tour Modifieds. And with 25 laps to go, he just needs to try and get as much position as quickly as possible. And the 31 there, that is the 31 of Jody Reinhardt, got loose coming off of turn 4. He was able to save it, but they're still double file. This is Matthew Lambert and Cullen Johnston, the two drivers who are first and fourth in the points, but the two top drivers in this race in the points, as Casey Hatcher and Russell Peets did not start this race. So those two are pretty much battling for the points lead if it comes down to it. But I think right now the Catalanos are in the best position for one of them to take the points lead. They both sit 5th and 6th, 19 points and 42 points back. I think right now, if Tyler Catalano can get a great finish in this race, he sits P5, he could overtake everybody and get the points lead come the checkered flag.
Yeah, especially with it, like you've mentioned multiple times, with the double points, that really lends itself to that opportunity. But Matthew Lambert's not going to give up that points lead easily. He's going to fight his way up towards the front and try to get as many position and points as he can. As the 31 of Jody Reiner is riding the wall right there, having some issues. He hit it multiple times, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on with that car. Maybe it's just too tight, but he just seemed to be stuck on that wall.
The 48 of Matthew Lambert is on a mission right now. He is up to P8 where he started tonight, so he's back to ground zero, and he is going to need to keep marching his way up through the field if he wants to keep this points lead. But right now, the 27, Evan Rajilski, making his first start tonight. He is on the back bumper of last week's race winner, Tyler Catalano. Look to the inside, didn't get there. He is right on that bumper. He's going to get a good run off turn 4. Yes, he will. To the inside of Catalano, they touch the 27 around. So it's the 42. 3 cars involved going into turn 1, and one of them is last week's winner, the 64 of Tyler Catalano.
Yeah, I think 64 got loose on the outside. That was a very weird incident there because they seem to both have clearly enough room. The 27 gets clearly inside. The 64 tried to block. The 64 came down to try to block, and it was too late, and ended up wrecking himself and the 27. And it seemed like Evan ended up getting the worst end of that, actually. So I feel bad for Evan in the 27. That was a very, very late move. And then Mike Buchanan just getting caught up in it also. So some innocent bystanders there getting caught up on a very bad late block.
And what a run that 27 was happening first race here tonight. And he was able to march his way through the pack and was making a run for the top 5. And unfortunately, just was on the bad end of a bad deal there between him and the 64. Just trying to make that move way too late, and we see that all too often, especially in short track racing. And that 64 doesn't look like it has too much damage on it, so Tyler Catalano might still be able to make a run at this win if he makes his way up through the field. He sits in P6. The 42 of Mike Buchanan, he got tagged on that wreck there, but he was able, at the time of caution, to be ahead of both Tyler and the 27 of Evan Rajilski. So right now, the 42 has scored P number 5. So he got a great end of the deal there. He is now up into the top 5.
Yeah, and I gotta wonder if the 64 has some wheel damage possibly, from the way that he ended up hitting that wall. So not quite sure exactly, but we had definitely a really good green flag run working there until that late block happened. So these guys are kind of settling in now, it seems, but I'm sure it's gonna be ramped right back up now that there's 15 laps to go. So we're gonna see again some more close quarter racing, maybe another caution or 2 depending on what exactly happens here.
15 laps to go. We always see the most intense part of these races come down to the last 15 laps. Kyle Cisco sits in the lead right now. He has led since the drop of the green flag, and Tyler Cox has been to his outside on every restart and has been behind him at every caution. He sits in P2. Ken Zeems in the 90 car. He is in P3 with Trevor Catalano in 4th. In the field, as the field doubles up, you can take a look back on row 3. In 5th, that's the 42 of Mike Buchanan. In 6th, Tyler Catalano. 7th, your points leader, Matthew Lambert in the 48. To his outside in 8th, that's the 92 of James Gerald. Then in 9th, it's Hunter Azaik. And rounding out your top 10, Patrick Hosier. As the field goes double file once again, 14 laps to go. When they come across the start-finish line, it'll be 13 to go. That 62 machine looking for another good start here. When will he go? That's 17 of Tyler Cox waiting. He's a little bit in front of the 62, and there goes Kyle Cisco. The 17 tried to stay to his outside. Did not happen. The 62 closes the doors and into 1.
Yeah, but he's still right there, and a little wiggle there actually from Cisco on exit. So if that happens again, you know Cox will be right there. But Cox actually seemed to miss the entry to the turn there, going in a little bit hot. So you have to be consistent in every part of the turn here to really get a fast lap going, because you have to make sure you're slow enough on entry to be able to hold the bottom in the corner, but get that nice run out on exit.
Ken Zeems was not playing any of the 54's games. They had a little bit of contact in turn 1 as Ken Zeems takes over P3. The 54 of Trevor Catalano now right behind him, as there's the 42 of Mike Buchanan. He gave a shot to the 54, and that 54 got pushed into the 90. Luckily, nobody went around, but the 42 of Mike Buchanan wants around the 54, and he wants to get around him now. This is the battle for P4.
Yeah, and he had a little bit of wiggle there. I think he caught the curb a little bit. As we see the battle for first here, Cox is still right there behind Cisco, so he may have a chance for this thing at the end. I'm sure if it gets down to one of those final laps, that bumper might come into play. So we'll have to see what ends up happening there. But this is a great battle we're getting to see for the lead, as long as Cox can just stay with him towards the end and keep the pressure on. We might see a mistake from Cisco.
Battle for the lead heating up. We're taking a look back on the battle for 9th between Billy Kruzka and the 7 of Patrick Hosier. Kruzka going to take that spot. There's your points leader, Matthew Lambert, right behind this battle between the 64 and the 42. That's the battle for P5. And the 42 loose on the inside. He gets turned around. The 42 is around, and one car is flipping. That's your points leader, the 42 of Matthew Lambert.
And that's a very bad deal there, because he's going to lose a ton of points now, as it looks like that engine is smoking. So that could be a meatball flag, which would then put him towards the back of the cars still out in the race right now.
42 of Mike Buchanan got turned around. Looks like he just got loose, but the 48 of Matthew Lambert had nowhere to go. Here he is diving into turn 1. You can see the 64 and the 42 up ahead of him. The 42 just getting out of the groove. And that 48 just got pushed into the wall by the 92, and it looks like they just hooked around. And that was all she wrote. The 48 into the wall, got pushed up into the air, and up and over he goes.
Yeah, just a lot of bad things happening there all at once, and that's short track racing, where anything can happen at any time. And when it gets down to those final laps, people are pushing hard, and so you get to see mistakes happen, and some big wrecks really come down towards the end of races, and that really puts people in binds. So I think at this point we're gonna see a new points leader. Just we're not quite sure who. But that's a really, really tough break for Matthew Lambert.
I'm assuming this is going to be a green-white checkered finish. We're waiting for these guys to come around and see when exactly the lights are going to come out on the iRacing.com pace car. 5 laps remain in this race. So I do not believe we're going to have 4 more laps of caution. But I do believe on this next restart, if we do get another caution, we will be heading into overtime. But right now, I think we are going to be going green with either 4 or 3 laps to go. Across the line this time by. What's going to happen on the base car? No changes. We can only assume they are now on 2 laps to go under caution. So we will be going green with 2 to go in the race. But right now, the development up front has been the same. Kyle Sisko has led since the drop of the green flag with Tyler Cox to his outside. But we've seen it before in this series, how a late run can be important between these top 2 racers. But Brian, do you think Kyle Sisko can hold on in that 62, depending on the restarts that he has gotten so far?
I think he's gotten some really good restarts. I think after he had one that was kind of, it was still okay. He kept the lead, but he had Cox to his outside going into the turn 1, which is not really what you want. But I think it really comes down to, is Cox willing to use that bumper into these turns to move Sisko out of the way? If he is, I think he has a chance. If he's not, then I think this is Sisko's race. Because he can just hold that bottom so well.
This could be the last chance. Tyler Cox has to win this race. He is on the outside of Kyle Sisko. The 90 of Ken Zeems in 3rd. The 54 of Trevor Catalano in 4th. And in 5th, that is the 64 of Tyler Catalano. Green flag back out. 2 laps to go at Martinsville Speedway. The 62 taps the wall, but he gets in front of the 17 of Tyler Cox. What is going to happen as the wrecking in turn 1? Multiple cars around, but no caution yet as the leaders coming off of turn 4. Kyle Sisko was about to take the white flag, but caution is out once again on the speedway.
I have to wonder if that was an admin thrown caution just to save an incident that we might have had. Because if some of those cars were still on the track, that would have caused a big incident with these leaders coming around, trying to avoid them. But big wreck happening towards the back, and it just looks like a little tap of the 42 maybe getting in hot, or the 70 they're slowing up a little bit too much. So it's one of those things at short tracks where a braking point can be different and it can just cause issues. Oh, and it looks like the 31 was upside down there of Jody Reinhardt, and that's so sad to see because Reinhardt was your biggest mover of the race to that point, and I'm sure he'll be going down the list here shortly.
And I think that wreck on the back straightaway is the reason we had the caution, because you can see those guys wrecked in turn 1, but then we also had this wreck on the back straightaway, much bigger than the one in turn 1 in terms of incident points, and I believe that was what iRacing uses to throw the caution. It was not an admin thrown caution. It was thrown by the iRacing service. I think that wreck on the back straightaway was the one that made that caution be thrown. But now we are heading into overtime. Green, white, checkered finish. What'll happen is once those lights go on the iRacing.com pace car and it pulls into pit road and we go back green, we will have 1 green flag lap followed by 1 white flag lap and then the checkered flag, which will end the race. If we get a caution on the green flag lap, we'll rack them up and restart them again. And we have 3 attempts to get to the final white flag lap. Once that white flag comes out, race is official. They will race back to the checkered flag. But as long as they're on that green flag lap, if a caution is thrown, we will be racking them up and doing it again. Like I said, 3 attempts at this. This is attempt number 1 at a finish to this race. But that light's not out on the pace car just yet. Still waiting to go back to racing here at the Martinsville Speedway. But it's going to be interesting because we saw in that last restart, everybody anxious and everybody just looking for any positions they can possibly make up. And that's where the caution was thrown. Here's Kyle Sisko on that 2 to go lap on the back straightaway through 3 and 4. And right as he saw the white flag, the caution came out. And now here's that replay, the 31 of Jody Reinhardt. Just looks like the 38 of Ignacio Adames. Maybe didn't see him down there, but there's the 62 of Kyle Cisco. I mean, just what heartbreak. You're coming onto the front straightaway. You can see the white flag in the flag waver's hand, and the caution lights come on.
Yeah, it's so close. Those ones are the ones that are really tough because you're coming to take it. You can see it. You've got that victory in hand. He had that nice little lead there that it would have been hard to even get there to use the bumper. So he probably would have had this thing in sight, and now we get to see them do it all over again.
6 rows of cars, 2 by 2, ready to go back racing. The 62 of Kyle Cisco in control of the field. He is gone. Back to green. The first green-white checkered attempt. Cisco leads the way into turn 1. Tyler Cox about a half a car length behind, and they're wrecking more around in turn 1. The 64, Tyler Catalano is around, more around. That looks like the 27 machine also around. Another wreck, and we will be racking them up again for another green-white checkered finish.
Yeah, and that's just something that you see with these green-white checkers is people really going for it and just shooting it in there. We see that it really starts up front. They're not quite sure exactly what happened at the front as they were a little bit out of frame, but yeah, just people going in hard to try to make that turn to get as many positions as they can. Contact is made as it looks like the 64 just turns down on the 90 there. So a big mistake there from Catalano as he just turned down across Ken Zeem's nose, and that's going to send him back. And he was on the track to getting a really good point stay, and now he ends up falling back to 9th position at the moment.
Lining up for green-white checkered attempt number 2. Same thing that we had at attempt 1. 1 green flag lap. If a caution comes out on that lap, we will be racking them up again for the 3rd time. And the final attempt at a green-white checkered finish. But if they make it to that white flag lap, the next flag will be the checkered flag no matter what happens out there on the racetrack. But the field currently still pacing behind the iRacing.com pace car, just anxiously waiting to go back green, as we are now 8 laps over the scheduled race distance of 60 laps here tonight at the Martinsville Speedway. And Brian, I don't think we really expected much different. Under the lights at the famous Martinsville Speedway, double points on the line. We expected a lot, and there goes the 64 coming down. What was that? It looks like he went to come down pit road, decided against it, came back on the racetrack, but he is currently scored in 10th place. Just wondering what Tyler Catalano was exactly doing there.
Yeah, he looked faked coming in, I guess, and he has to have a penalty because he hit the cone. So I don't know. He tried to come in and then just pulled out and into Cisco. That's not a very good look there. He's probably frazzled from the incident that happened. It's one of those things where guys' confidence can get shaken after an incident like that, especially when he ended up turning himself, basically. So, and I just heard an engine blow, and it's the 21, it looks like, of Don Adam Sizik having some issues there with a blown engine.
He was scored in 17th, 32 laps down after an earlier incident, so not exactly shocked that that engine blew there. But here we go. Racking them up again. Green, white, checkered finish. Brian, are you expecting another turn 1 pile-up on this one?
Quite possibly. We saw it last time. These guys get really antsy, especially at the start, because you can make up a lot of positions there if you can get a good one. So it really just comes down to who has patience and who doesn't.
Once again, Kyle Cisco in control of the field. We are back racing as they come off turn 4. The 17 of Tyler Cox. Will he use the bumper down in turn number 1? The 62 holds the lead. Looks like he went for a shot, not able to complete it. The 62 leads, and another caution is out. 2 cars around in turn 2. That looks to be the 7 and the 42.
Yeah, again, these guys pushing so hard here. We'll get to see exactly what ends up happening going into this turn, and The 7 just taps the 6, it looks like, and then gets hit from behind. So just one of those pileup things where someone gets checked up by someone else and the car behind can't see that and react quick enough is really just ended up what caused that caution there. And going back to that lead as we were going into turn 1, the 17 had an opportunity. I don't think he missed as much as he slowed up to not hit him. It looked like he just got heavy on the brakes, which actually allowed Cisco to pull away on exit because of it. And on the actual restart, the 62 did a great job of slowing down just enough to allow the 17 to. He saw the 17 get on the gas early, which made the 17 have to get off. The 62 at that point fired it up at just the right moment to get out in front.
And we're seeing another green-white checkered attempt, and this is the last one. Ryan, do you think these guys are going to calm down? Or like we've seen for the last handful of restarts, we're going to have a turn 1, lap 1 pile up, and we're going to end up finishing this race under caution. 62 grabbing that win.
Yeah, this restart is really going to be the biggest moment of this race. It's really what's going to show if the 17 has really the chance to get there or not, because if he can't stay close to him on the restart, then it's not even going to matter. He has to be right there on his bumper going into turn 1. If he's even a half a car length back, I don't think he has an opportunity to even win this race.
All bets are off now, especially if all bets weren't already off. We are now in the final green-white checkered attempt, which basically means the next flag that waves, if it's the checkered or the yellow, will basically end the race. So if a yellow flag is thrown on this green flag lap, we will end under caution, like the olden days of iRacing before these green-white checkers were added to the service, where they basically just finished under caution if a caution came out under 5 laps to go. Or they're going to take that white flag and we will race around to the checkered. And I know Kyle Cisco basically just wants this race to be over in any way that he can get it. Tyler Cox wants the win, so he wants as much time as possible to try and get around the 62. Ryan, do you think Tyler's just going to need to wreck the 62 to get the win? We've seen Kyle Cisco be so dominant all night.
I don't think he needs to wreck him. I just think he needs to give him that nudge to move him up out of the lane. That's going to be the biggest way to really get past him, is to get him off that bottom, because he can hold it so well. So we'll see if he can get close enough to do that.
And here we go, the 62 of Kyle Cisco in control of the field, waiting on the green flag. There it is. The 62 is gone. The 17 of Tyler Cox on his outside. They will go side by side into turn 1. But the 17 gonna fall victim to the 62 on the inside line. There goes Kyle Cisco leading the way, but here comes the 17. White flag one more time around Martinsville Speedway. Where will the 17 make the move? There's the bumper to the 62. He gets him up out of the groove. Now the 17 has a chance, but the 62 of Kyle Cisco just too fast for Tyler Cox. But coming off of the corner, the 62 gets loose, but he'll take the win. Cisco victorious in Martinsville as Cox goes upside down in turn 1.
Yeah, and we saw that was beautiful car control there from Cisco to be able to pull off that win. We saw him get the shove and it sent him up the track, but with it, his car was loose and he was drifting basically all the way up the track and was able to keep it off the wall, keep it under control, and still come away with the lead while still being loose after getting a shot. And then off of turn 4, he got loose, but there was just nowhere for Cox to go because he was so close, which ended up pulling it, making it Cox end up getting loose behind him with not being able to go anywhere.
This final restart was nothing short of insanity. And there goes the 62 right out to the lead. That's what he's done all night. He mastered restarts here at Martinsville Speedway and was able to get that lead and keep it. He made his car about as wide as the racing surface here and was able to hold on through turn 1 for the first time. The 17 gave him a bump. The 62 just so fast, even on that outside line, that it didn't even look like it affected his speed. It looks like it maybe made him speed up even. And then coming out of the corner, he got loose, but so did the 17 of Tyler Cox, and he was not able to capitalize on the 62's mistake, and around went 17.
Yeah, it was just a beautiful finish for us. We got to see a great finish at the end there. Some of these guys coming back up. Tyler Catalano came back to finish 6th there. So with Matthew Lambert finishing 16th, we may definitely see some changes here. Colin Johnston ended up finishing 7th. So I think we are going to definitely have a new points leader after the race and some big contact throughout this entire last lap throughout the entire field.
An insane restart to end. It looks like that 6 car just went for a move to the inside to try and at least block his position. He came on P6 and was trying to defend for the top 5. Here's the onboard with Tyler Cox, and there's the bump right there. But it also looked like that 17 just got a little bit too low, hit the rumble strip, and that also ruined his momentum coming off of the corner. So he was not able to capitalize on the 62, and there it just looks like he was trying to correct to the 62 getting loose, and around he went on the front straightaway.
Yeah, it just, there was so much action in that last lap that we got treated to a treat tonight with the way things just went down. I am very excited for that finish. It was something that we could have only dreamed of at the start of the night, with the lights here at Martinsville. A great track, great cars under the lights with some great drivers. It's just a recipe for the great finish that we got to see.
Full race results now here on Apex Racing TV. The East Coast Thunder Esports Tour Modified Series giving us an amazing show in tonight's double points race here at Martinsville Speedway. Kyle Sisko was able to bring it home to the checkered flag and grab his first win of the season, with Tyler Cox finishing P2. Ken Zeems finished 3rd, Trevor Catalano 4th, Tyler Catalano 5th, Billy Kruska in 6th, Cullen Johnston 7th, Mike Buchanan in 8th, Jason Ricker in 9th, Patrick Hosier in 10th, Hunter Azaik 11th, Ignacio Adames 12th, Jody Reinhardt 13th, Evan Rojelski 14th, James Gerald 15th, Matthew Lambert 16th, Don Adam Seeks in 17th, and Jason Hand in 18th, with Stephen Barber rounding out your 19-car field, and Dayton Hutchins did not start the feature. The post-race show with post-race interviews coming up right after this short break. You are watching the East Coast Thunder Esports Tour Modified Series live on Apex Racing TV. Don't go anywhere. A hectic end to a great night here at the Martinsville Speedway. Double points on the line for the East Coast Thunder eSports Tour Modified Series, and these drivers did not disappoint. Race winner currently joining us here in the commentary booth, Kyle Cisco. Kyle, you were fast in the previous weeks. You were unable to get it done and get it into victory lane. But tonight at Martinsville Speedway, the stars aligned and you led every single lap to the victory. Talk about your entire race leading up to that final green-white checkered finish. It just looked like that 62 was on rails.
Yeah, I think we showed good speed all night. We were able to grab the pole and, kind of set sail in the beginning. And the 17 kind of kept us on our toes and ran us clean all race, which I have to thank him for. He was definitely real nice there at the end after getting quite a bit of damage when I think it was the 54, 64, one of them decided to pit, then not pit, and came back out and got us. Not sure what happened exactly, but whatever it bent or broke, whatever, made the car bottom out real bad at the end there and kind of unload and be big free. So like I said, I just got to thank the 17 for running me clean all the way to the end. We got the white there the one time and the quick caution, so all those restarts, 17 definitely kept me on my toes.
And you were able to qualify on the pole for the feature race, even though everybody was locked into the feature being under 22 cars starting tonight. How important was it to you to qualify up front and just keep the natural track position that you had right from the outset?
Well, with this track being so bottom dominant, you got to make sure you're on the bottom on the restarts and protect the bottom and not give an inch because like you guys were saying earlier, it's just so bottom dominant. And if you get hung out on the top, then, that's where your problems start to arise. So, we thought coming into tonight, if we can qualify up front, I think we'd have the speed to stay there. And I think we showed that a little bit tonight.
Now moving forward in this points championship, this was double points tonight. And we're currently waiting on those updated point standings, but you were currently sitting 19th before tonight's race. How far are you expecting to jump up in the standings? And do you expect to have a run at this points championship by week 10?
Me and my team just try to race when we can. Thursday nights is kind of tough. It's usually our shop night in real life. So, with it being so late, sometimes it helps, but most times I either miss the show or get caught up in some early wrecks. Like last week, we had a fast car and got caught up early, but that's behind us. We're just gonna show up when we can and run hard as we can when we show up.
Anyone else you would like to thank?
No, I just got to thank everyone that helps me out. Blake Barney was spotting tonight. Usually he runs with us, but with the recent storm we got, he didn't have a strong enough internet to race, but he was still able to come in here and spot for me. So I appreciate that, and that's about it. You guys for doing what you do, William, for putting all this together, and hopefully we'll be back soon.
Kyle Cisco, tonight's winner here at the Martinsville Speedway. And Brian, you're standing by with your second place finisher, Tyler Cox in the 17.
Hey, Tyler, congratulations on your second place finish. A lot happened in that race. You guys kind of saw a little bit of it a few times when something happened, but you mainly sat up there in that second place position, trying to get it on restarts a lot of times. We saw the shot at the end, especially. What were you thinking throughout the race and then coming into that final restart?
Uh, I was trying to save tires for a little while, so like when Kyle got out ahead, it didn't really bother me too much. But then we kept getting caution after caution after caution, and so I was trying a little harder. And then I got big time loose. I think it was like 20 to go off one and killed the right rear. I ended up like exiting straight on the bottom down the straightaway. But on the last restart, he bottomed out. I think he had some damage from when the 64 clobbered him coming out of pit road, and I got in there too hot. Me and Kyle have already talked about it. But got in there a little too hot and gave him a shot, but nothing hard enough to spin him around. Just good hard short track racing.
Yeah, so we did see also coming out of the last turn where he got loose in front of you, and then you ended up, it seemed like, getting loose. When you saw him get loose, what were your thoughts?
That I knew he was gonna break momentum going down the straightaway, so I just punched it. Like usually, like tonight we were coming off like half or 3/4 throttle, trying to keep the car stable because it was super loose. So I just punched it and was hoping that it would hook up enough, and it didn't. It just roasted the tires off of it and sent me sliding down the front straightaway. But I had to try something, so.
Now, we also saw lap traffic kind of come into play a little bit throughout the race. What were your thoughts of going around them? They kind of pulling out of the way, or were there a few times where it got really hairy for you?
No, they were fine for the most part. Some of the guys that like wrecked, you weren't really sure where they were gonna go. Some of them would pull up across the track and stuff, but we got through it, and then it was definitely a fun race.
All right. Is there anyone else you want to thank?
Yeah, I gotta thank some of my real life people, Ryan Kuhn, Everett's Auto Parts, Signworks New England, Bernier's Liquors, and yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, that was your second place finisher, Tyler Cox. Another great finish for Tyler here in his first race of the season. So now I believe Josh is standing by with our third place finisher, Ken.
Ken, we've seen you get the short end of the stick far too often in this series, but tonight you're able to get only your second ever top 10 in this series and your first top 5 of the season. Talk about how much of a confidence boost this is for you now going through with the rest of this series that you are able to run with these top guys.
No, it's not a confidence boost. I mean, I know I can run with them. I just always getting taken out, it seems like. So just glad to finish tonight. You know, it's tough to finish these races. There's just always wrecks in this league. And like I said, I've always been taken out. I was running second the one week and got stuffed in the wall. So P3 tonight was actually a good night for our team. Our team finished 3, 4, and 5. Trevor and Tyler Catalano there, and during the points race, so it was a good night for them.
And you were able to race your way out of the heat race. You were able to win that heat race. Was that sort of a wake-up call for you going into this race, that really saying, and qualifying 7th as well, saying, hey, I have a fast car, and then all you have to do then is just try and fight your way through traffic, because you did have a lot of traffic you had to fight your way through tonight.
Yeah, actually, I had a good run going in qualifying. I scraped the wall, so my lap didn't count. But, you know, avoided some wrecks and, you know, just ran there, third place, you know. Like I said, it's just good to finish in this league.
Anyone else you'd like to thank before we let you go?
Yeah, so I give a shout out. My wife and kids are at the camper, so I'm sure my son's watching this. I'm sure my little girls are sleeping, but they'll watch the replay. And just got to thank Chris Apgar for Apgar eSports and Jeff McConey for McConey Setup Shops. Like I said, like good run there by Trevor and Tyler tonight. It's good night for our team, 3, 4, and 5.
Ken Ziem's third place finisher here tonight at the Martinsville Speedway. And we mentioned it all night. Double points, meaning this points championship was going to shake up. We have your current point standings from after tonight's race. And we have our only third ever new points leader in this championship. Cullen Johnston grabs that points lead with 285 points. But second place currently is Tyler Catalano, 1 point behind at 284. But in third is Matthew Lambert, your points leader from the beginning of tonight. He sits 4 points behind. And then fourth place, which is Trevor Catalano, sits 22 points behind. And then the gap definitely widens from there. But the top 3 all separated by less than 5 points. Brian, as we go into week 7, 8, 9, and 10, the finale of this series, this points championship is getting really juicy.
Oh yeah, that's what a double points race does. It really just shakes things up because, as we saw, Matthew Lambert did not have a good finish after the incident. And those guys were able to both jump him, and they're very close in points themselves now. So it's going to be a big points battle to finish out this season, as these guys are going to have to claw and scratch to get every good finish they can. At this point, with it getting this late in the season, you cannot have a bad finish. If you do, it's just going to suck you out of the points race. So these guys have to be on top of it and run consistent for the rest of the season.
Your race winner, Kyle Sisko, jumped from 19th to 12th. He jumped seven positions after tonight, and a lot of guys that did not compete, Casey Hatch, Russell Peets, Chris Downing, Kenny Zeems, all lost 7 positions, with Mike Buchanan being the biggest mover currently, up 12 positions from, I believe, 40th all the way up to 22nd after he made his second start of the year tonight in this double points race. But we cannot thank you all enough for tuning into tonight's East Coast Thunder Esports Tour Modified Series race from the virtual Martinsville Speedway on Apex Racing TV. For Marco Barbonera, Brian Delp, I am Joshua Lee, and we thank you for joining us, and we are saying good night from Martinsville.